3, 4.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Philosopheckery. Our guest today has been a fly on the wall inside the Irish High Courts in Dublin throughout some of the highest profile cases in recent Irish history. Amongst them, Conor McGregor versus Nikita Hand, the trial of Gerry Hutch for the murder of David Byrne at the Regency Hotel, the Rossa Phelan case where the solicitor shot a trespasser in the back of the head, and the trial of Aisling Murphy's murderer. And he has come here to talk to us about it all. Today I bring you court artist Mike O'Donnell. Hi, Mike, and welcome.
Hi, Di. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure so far.
It's early yet, but we'll see how it goes. So tell us, Mike, how did you fall into this career as a court artist? Was it something you always wanted to be, or where did your inspiration come from?
Yeah, it's funny you should use the word fall because I probably fell into it because I was cycling my bike in late 2009 and I got hit by a truck. I wasn't seriously injured or anything like that, but it kind of put me on all fours on the way from Bannistrand to Tralee on a November morning or a December morning. And I was in between jobs at the time, and I landed, and I literally had my hands and my legs, and I said, I have to do my art, like get fully into it. And within about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I found myself in the newly opened CCJ building in Dublin. And I literally could see the blood from my hands from when I was recovering from my injuries. And I was drawing Eamonn Lillis, who was on trial. It was the first murder trial in that building in Dublin. And while I was recovering from my injuries, the following couple of days after the accident, I heard a news report saying that this new building, which I like to see as a coliseum in Dublin, a glass coliseum in Dublin, was housing the criminal courts. But the new arrangements were such that people murder accused, wouldn't be seen by the media going into the courts, because if you remember back in the day, prior to that, anybody on trial for these serious crimes were brought in on a prison truck, and it was a big spectacle to have them videoed while going into the forecourts, say, and that was to be done away with. So I said, geez, I love sketch drawing people. I absolutely love it. I've no work, And I said, this is like an opportunity. And I knew Hugh O'Flaherty, the judge down from Carsey, and he was a Supreme Court judge. So I rang him. He said, you should definitely go for it, do it, and he was all behind me. And I found myself, at that trial. And I remember a lot of the people who were involved in that trial, apart from the accused, who are now, gone up the ranks in the legal side of things. They're senior counsel now, and including Judge Tarraburn, is a judge now. So they've, times have changed, times have moved on. And that was the beginning of that's how I got into it. But if I was to go way back when I was much younger, I'm from Kerry, and like you're into hurling and football. We're only into, I suppose we would be hurling in North Kerry, but the lads would be out playing football all the time, and I'd love to be joining them, but they wouldn't sit down to be drawn, my brothers,
Okay.
So I couldn't draw anybody at school, and it was. I happened to be watching Kojak, an episode of Kojak, and there was somebody drawing court, So I was probably 9 or 10 at the time. So I loved it. So it was that seed was in my head to do something like that. And when the courts opened, I don't know, 20 or 30 years later, everything came together, and that's what I did, and I've been at it fairly
You've been at
much
it since.
since. But I've travelled in the meantime and all that. But if anybody asks me what do I do, it is court art.
Court art. And were you doing art before this? As in, were you a working artist? Or were you a struggling, trying to be working artist, as
Yeah,
many artists are?
yeah. Well, so I spent a number of years being a teacher, and I had no interest in it. I loved the children, but I had no interest in adults. And a lot of the work was dealing with that, and I had no interest in that. Not the parents, aren't just teachers. I had no interest in. And so I left that career, and always during my work, I couldn't explain anything, but I used to draw things, and that's how I explained as much as I was in my head.
Okay.
So I was always an artist, and before that, when I was a young fellow, I always wanted to be an architect and wanted to be doing something artistic. And I remember applying back in the 80s for when I was a young fella for Crawford, which was very hard to get into at the time in Cork. And I got my place, but my mom and dad said, "Mike, you'll have to get a real job, like you know." So my father retired. He was working with Telecom Éireann, or I suppose Telecom Éireann at the time. He retired, put so that we get a grant to put me through college, and the shortest duration degree at that time was teaching. So they sent me off to Mary in Limerick. I never, I so I ended up there, but I never wanted to go. I hated it. I hated it with a passion,
So you always had
and I'm very glad I did. Hmm?
you always had that drive to
Yeah,
draw things.
yeah, and they have the. Um, I did my very first mural up in Limerick in that college, and they have the I won't say notoriety is probably but they painted over it. So
How dare they?
it was a painting of the famine, a big
Oh,
famine scene, and you know I think it was indicative of the way that type of life didn't suit me. That my art was erased, and but
okay.
I won't say I hold it against them, but it was just a sign for me that I don't belong here. I don't
Okay.
belong to that type of profession. So
Yeah.
the free spirit that's required in art um, is suppressed by institutions. So I never work for anybody.
Okay. And so
And
are you employed now by
no,
anybody, or is it a freelance thing that you do
I'm
completely?
completely free.
Okay.
And I'm like the barristers that I work with. They're all self-employed. And
Okay.
there's a kind of a kinsmanship between us.
Ah,
Even the journalists I work with, most of them are employed by organizations, newspapers and TV. And I'm self-employed and I'm as free as a bird, and I'm as free as these people as well because there's a distinction. That self-employment to me is a badge of honor. I
mm,
don't share it with solicitors. I don't, but I share it with the barristers. So I was only chatting with a barrister the other day on the way to the train station back to Kerry, and we were regaling the freedom that self and the kind of there's also insecurity. And without that insecurity, there'd be the appetite for creating and for being imaginative would be suppressed. And I think that
mm,
insecurity is just so important. When you
okay.
get up in the morning, you don't know what's going to, you have to negotiate your wages every week. And every work I have, I'm putting everything into it. And then I'll say to myself, who am I going to sell this to? And it's like that every day. And but they always come at me, you know, the bar,
Yeah.
and they understand that the type of work that I do, I understand them, and the relationship is symbiotic.
Okay. Okay.
They feed me, I feed their ego, and their ego is very important to them, and I respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
judges as well, and but it's really I was just chatting to my brother. He landed down from Limerick there earlier, and we were saying how lucky I am to be doing what I do, because I absolutely love it. And I'll tell you, Di, I can't wait to wake up in the morning and go into court, and it takes, I will often wake up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and I say, I can't wait to go in, can you believe that? And there are a
Yeah,
lot of people out there who dread, the only escape they have from the slavery that they're enduring at work is sleep. But for me, it's kind of a place where I can dream of being back in the court again. It's incredible. So
that is.
I'm one of the most, I consider myself the most, definitely one of the most privileged people in the world. Not
No,
only,
I
and
think.
more importantly, in Kerry.
Well, it is a unique position you take in the court, because everybody else in the court is there for a reason. I mean, I'm wondering how many people in the court the night before were thinking, "Geez, I can't wait to go into court tomorrow."
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
few.
witnesses, judges, people who are there on trial themselves. Very few of them want to be there,
Yeah,
But
that's
but
right.
but you do have a privilege fly on
There's
the wall position there that is quite unique. Is it a competitive field in Ireland? Is there many people doing it?
I'm the only one.
You're the only
And
court
I
artist in Ireland.
understand that I'm the only one to be doing it professionally and full time
Okay.
ever.
Ever in Ireland?
Ever. Yeah. And
Wow.
that's going way back. That's going back pre the foundation of the state, because a lot of any artists who ever went in were working elsewhere. They weren't 100%, and they were visiting kind of.
Hmm.
And in my case, it's 100%. And definitely for the last year, I don't work for anybody. I'm completely devoted to this, and just the more I'm in it, the more I'm staying. Like there were times when I spent, a couple of days a week, maybe 2 days a week. Now I'm in there 4 and 5 days a week, and uh, that's how I earn my bread and butter. And
Yeah.
I, I'm very privileged because every day I go in, I meet somebody new, and so I built up over the years like massive human capital, if there's such a thing, and I find I find that I can go from world to world in the sense that I could be meeting, what polite society might call cutthroats and villains and vagabonds, and the following day, like the last day, billionaire, millionaires, fraudsters, thieves, robbers, people asserting their own rights that they want to keep their house, and maybe somebody fighting over a will, or somebody challenging a family, maybe challenging some decision by a health board or something, or HSE, or somebody fighting for to clear their name as a result of some messing by a school, or somebody has been sacked
Hmm.
by some institution unfairly in their fight. So there's you've all kinds of. And in my job, as you said, I've no skin in the game. I don't have a position on any of them, but I'm lucky that I can. The art side is only one side. The other side of it is the human interaction side of it, which is, I wouldn't have the capacity to do the art hadn't I developed the human side of it, the interaction side of it, and equally, there's no way I'd have been able to speak to these people if I hadn't the art as well. So it's kind of a means of connecting with people. So, and that's what the art is. Art is meant to be social, and
Hmm.
I'm socializing the artistic side of things, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it sounds like you get a huge amount of meaning out of it, Mike. Um, why why do we have sketch artists rather than photographers in courts in Ireland?
Yeah. So back in during the I suppose 1910s, 110 years or whatever, um, cameras began to enter courts. And the big trials, as you know, were in London, not in Dublin, like the Roger Casement trial. And in that particular case, there was a famous photograph of him in the Old Bailey, sitting up from behind, sitting in the box, the dock. And there was a lot of sensationalization of murder trials in London at the time. So somehow, I haven't investigated the actual act, but they banned image making in courts eventually in England. But that ban didn't extend to Ireland. But photography was never, because the big trials weren't in Ireland, there was no photographer, but photography. But the image making continued, but it was very little because there was very little happening in Ireland's trial-wise. As I said, the big trials were in London. And the British seemed to continue with that. And the Irish, or jurisdiction, separate state, just everything was as. And there were a couple of trials where image making was, but it was just there, but not ever challenged or never kind of, nobody did it really in Ireland, only the very odd time. I think there was joined on a tribunal at one stage. Now, somebody will come along and say, oh, and such a trial, but I just don't have the knowledge of it, right? And I just had a feeling there was an image created probably in the 80s of some trial, but I just can't remember what it was. But anyway, it was never challenged and never became an issue in court until last October.
Oh yes,
And
this is what first brought you onto my radar, was this case. And continue.
yeah, so something very interesting happened. It was the very first morning of the new legal year, last October 10th or 11th. And I arrived in at this very high profile murder trial, which was of Diurmd Rossa Phelan, who was accused of murdering intruders in his land. And so it was a very, very interesting case because he was a barrister. And, the whole prospect of a barrister on trial for murder in the Central Criminal Court was like massive. And, there was a lot of speculation about it. And, it was land and, a lot of country people are very interested in it. And obviously at the upper echelons of society were as well. Everybody was. And so I landed in. And generally during the beginning of a trial or a pre-trial, I never start drawing first. I just take a few moments because everybody has settled into they've settled down, because sometimes they're moving around, looking around, and then they'll eventually go into a kind of a place where they feel comfortable and they're generally kind of relaxed, and then I start drawing. So this is the beginning of what's called a pre-trial hearing, where lawyers will be discussing, what evidence, arguing over what evidence would be permissible to be put before the jury. There's no jury yet. So there was a pre-trial hearing, and the very, 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 very first thing that happened was that the defense stood up and said they didn't want the court artists to be present and to draw their client, because his image would endanger his life, and this was objected to by the DPP. And I was kind of a little bit mortified because, and I won't say terrified, that's the wrong word, but I was kind of a bit disturbed because if they had decided that the court artist isn't allowed work in the court, it was effectively game up for me. I was going back to Kerry and trying to figure out what I do for the rest of my artistic life and so on. So it was very high stakes. And anyway, they argued. To cut a long story short, I was brought up to the stand and I was asked to defend myself. And I cited Hugh O'Flaherty's ruling, 1999, where 2000, maybe later than that, where the media are the eyes and ears of the people in the court, and also the constitutional right to work. I just knew and there was also a colleague who was kind of teeing me up as well, like, and it was very very quiet because the judge had gone, the legal teams were conferring amongst themselves, and I didn't know what to expect, but I was brought up to the stand. I couldn't not go up to this. I couldn't just leave the court because if the judge directs you to go up to the stand, you just have to go up to the stand. So I was unprepared, and I cited these, and the judge, uh, as it happened, about half an hour previously, I was up in another judge's chambers chatting to him about some artwork that I had done. So I felt quite comfortable going up and defending my art. And I said that I'm actually just down from Judge so and so's chambers. And I was asked, how long are you at this? And have you any qualifications? I said, no. And, what gives you the right, blah, blah, blah. And I was really pushed to the pin of my collar. But what stuck in my mind was the view I had from, I could see everything. I could see everything. I saw the judge, I could see the counsel, I could see the accused, I could see the guy cross-examining me who was a towering figure of the bar. And I could see I could have the view from the stand is unbelievable. But anyway, in the heel of the hunt, the judge ruled in my favour. And that's effectively a High Court ruling which said that the court artist is quite entitled to do his work.
So that stands now as
that stands. But
yeah.
Having said that, though, back in 2010 when I did start, I was drawing an alleged rapist. And I suppose there was some concern. And Judge Carney said that I'm very happy to have the court artist. This is the judge speaking in court in here, and he's doing work that reaches way back into antiquity, and his work is valued. So that's like a high court position. But times pass, people forget. The corporate memory fades.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
yeah,
but
it was a good
it's
remark.
good to get it set down as a legal precedent.
Yeah. So now the days and weeks and months and ever since, I feel completely vindicated. And there's always the danger it could be challenged, and I feel that it gave me a huge impetus to commit 110% to my work, and I feel it's valued.
That's great.
Nobody, there is nobody on the outside can see what goes on in the courts. Only through my hands and eyes, and that's a real privilege. It's a real privilege. I don't boast. It's just so special for me. I remember the table outside bringing in a red top newspaper to my mother. She's dead now a year, and I said, "Look at that." There was a drawing of a fella, a rapist, and the title was "Evil Bastard Caged," right? What do you do that for? She said, what's that? What do you do? But this was, I always felt a bit of a chill doing work after.
Yeah.
This was very important.
Yeah.
So literally the following day, I got messages, I got people saying, fair play, and from barristers and from like everybody, it kind of was I got great support from everybody. In fact, the guy who cross-examined me is a great friend of mine now, and but it isn't, he's only doing he's only doing his job to represent the client, so it's nothing personal at all, and I understand all that. So.
Yeah, I remember I was following that case a bit, and I was one of them people who read about you going up on the stand, and I said, well, fair play to him. Because just to give people a bit of background of the case, on February 22nd, 2022, Phelan encountered Conlon and two other men trespassing on his property, allegedly engaging in illegal badger baiting. Concerned about a lurcher dog threatening his sheep, Phelan shot the dog. This led to a confrontation where Phelan claimed he felt threatened as the men advanced towards him. He fired 3 shots from his revolver, and the third struck Conlon in the back of the head. Conlon died 2 days later in hospital. Now, this case for me, I was very shocked at the result of this case. Because I felt like this barrister, particularly when he was immediately making challenges that his image shouldn't be leave the court, as though he was in the wrong place and he shouldn't actually be there. It was for lesser people to be in his position, apparently. And I felt that he had this kind of indignant attitude that no matter what happened, he had a gun in his hand, it went off, and the bullet went through the back of a man's head. I thought he was certainly in the right place, and the public certainly had a right to see his image and hear the case out. Um, how do you feel about how that case played out?
um, all those cases in the criminal courts are tragic, and I suppose I feel for, on balance, I feel for the family of the victims, and I I maintain they attended every day, and it was one of the longest trials ever. Went on for months and months and months.
This
Went
is
on
the Conlon family of the man who died.
Conan family, yeah, and uh, I think they came away in the end with nothing, and I think the other side, the barrister was entitled, of course, to represent himself or have his interests represented, and they obviously did a great job in that. And I suppose it's very hard to remove. I mean, I'm not there to judge him, but I mean, the fact I was brought up was, I in the end, I think, just a signal, I suppose, or sign that they would use he would use every opportunity to scupper. But in the end, it was a jury decided, and that's the law. But I always feel for that family, and I under the law, justice was done. But I just wonder about the whole moral law, if there is one.
Hmm.
Was justice?
Yeah,
That's all.
I,
I mean, I
like
don't have any. You have to accept and I accept the outcome, but it's very sad.
yeah. It doesn't. It leaves a bad taste in the tongue, in the mouth. Whatever happened, it just to me it appeared, and I wasn't as close to it as you were. I was only following it in the newspapers, but it seemed very much to be a battle of resources and of finances in a large way. Uh, one side was the barrister who had obviously all the legal expertise and no doubt friends in the trade as well that could help him, and the other side was a not well off, but apparently by all accounts very nice family, um, who didn't have those resources. Uh, but as you said, we have to stick with the court's findings. Um,
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of cases where you know um, where the public receives, say, the reportage, and very quickly say, "Oh, I should have got more than that. I should have got less." Or, well, generally he should have got more. But in the end, it isn't even the jury; it's the judge who knows all the facts. The judge knows all the facts. The judge reads reports that aren't available to media. They have background reports and stuff. So you hear, somebody giving out about a judge not giving say a long sentence, say for example to a paedophile or something like that, or somebody who is downloaded, whatever. And fact is that these people are highly professional people, like they are, and highly, like very well versed in the law and in real life, you know, and they know all the facts. And so I have great regard for them, and they manage really complex kind of issues. And I've actually great time. I'm not saying I'm at their mercy, in the court. I know that, but I also I've dealt with them. I've seen them at work, and they are very, very. They're huge, really proud. Highest regard for them. If you ask me who do I have highest regard for, it's the judges.
The judges.
The judges, yeah. Even some of them get flack, but what they and how humane they are as well, and they're aware. Like even people in trial for murder or for say hitman or something like that, or an alleged rapist or the Satchwell, recent. These people, the judges know that they're the whole apparatus of the state, which is endless resources, is hanging over these people, and they're treated with real dignity in the court, even though they may be guilty of, in the end, of terrible crimes, and to afford them that dignity, is I think very, very special. It isn't. I can see that, but it isn't that I sympathise with them. It's just that they are afforded the human dignity, no matter what they've done, and it troubles me, when I don't work for them anymore. But any kind of media organisation that calls people, you know, bastards or devils or brutes or thugs or anything like that, they're humans in the end and in the beginning. They were just born into. A lot of them were born into conditions where they didn't have a chance. They didn't have choices that you and I have had, say, and to make a very simple judgment of them is just it's demeaning, not only of them but of the people who make that judgment, and kind of people who are very quick to cast aspersions on others, without kind of understanding and kind of checking out facts and evidence, and you know even if I did that, I wouldn't be qualified to to judge them at all. So the judge, they're professional judges. They have all the evidence and all the facts, and I really have great regard for them.
I suppose that's probably something that we, the public, maybe don't take account of enough, is that judges, solicitors, police, they're not robots, they're not machines. There's a human being behind every one of them there who's trying to do the right thing, at least most of the time.
Yeah, I think so. So in the courts, you have prison officers, you have court officials, who are working, for the state and the management of the courts, and you have the judges, you have jury who peers brought in off the street, you have journalists who are recording for their news organisations, you have police, you have specialist police or guards, you have victims, their families, you have alleged perpetrators, their families, their partners. You have all these. You have, of course, the legal teams, the solicitors in the front facing and then you have the seasoned senior counsel, their junior counsel, and then behind them the devils or the pupils of the junior counsel. So it's like a film set, and each has a particular role to play. I've been on a few film sets. You probably have yourself. You see the way everybody operates, apparently independently, but under the direction of the director, obviously. But that's the way the court is. It's like a film set, but the stakes are real and they're really high, and it's like theatre without the acting.
Oh, that's a very
It
good way
really
of
is.
putting it. Um, do you see yourself as a type of reporter? Are you or not?
Um, uh, I'm a visual, I suppose, visual reporter. I'm recording, and it's not instant. It takes time. And in fact, at the McGregor trial, just to show you the difference, people always ask about photography and uh, court art, and I was drawing the full scene because I love drawing full scenes. I just get drawing one person is just it's just not very interesting to me. But to draw the full scene and to try and through that capture the atmosphere and the goings on and the busyness of the court and maybe the terror and the maybe elation at times of what's going on. Um, so I start on one, generally on the left, and on the right, then I go, I travel the court. So it could, for really, like, could take me an hour, like, to get through everybody, like, all the way up to the judge and whoever's on the stand. So to show you the difference between photography, as I understand it, and drawing, there was McGregor was sitting there, and his father, and beyond him was James Lawrence. Was he James Lawrence, who was co-accused in the case? And then you had the families and the solicitors, and then the senior counsel, and then the judge, and who was on the stand. So there I was drawing McGregor, his father, and then James Lawrence, and then all the way up. And then as I proceeded up, I started drawing who was on the stand, and it was James Lawrence. So it was then it occurred to me, I mean, how could a camera possibly do something so stupid,
Yeah.
But anyway, it was kind of like, okay, well, it is different to photography. So I had two James Lawrences in the, yeah,
And I guess a picture is taken like a moment in time,
yeah,
one still moment. But I guess what you're trying to capture in your art is the day's events
yeah,
in one composition. As you
yeah,
said yourself, the emotion, the situation, the vibe of the whole time. You're trying to capture in this one image, whereas a camera can just capture that one moment in time.
yes, yeah.
Hmm.
So it's a different art form, Dahi.
Yeah.
It's a different art form. And, you think of, say, the great artists like, just say, Bacon, or like, what's his name, Lucien Freud doing a portrait of somebody. And could you imagine if somebody said, Lucien, I wonder, would a photograph be a bit better now when you're drawing the naked whatever? And like, they're just two separate, so distinct, aren't they? Art forms.
Yes, they are. They
It's
are.
like journalism, and I'm sure when you know radio came, there's sure what's the point in newspapers? Maybe that conversation, but it didn't last very long because they're two
Yeah.
separate things, right? So
Yeah.
my work is on paper. It's not too far from, in my own mind, from the work in the caves back 40,000 years ago. It's not. It's the same. It's the same thing. The only thing is my work is live,
Yeah.
And the difference between my work and the work that's done in the UK is that their work isn't live. Their work is after. They're not allowed, you see, and that makes my work even more special in my own head.
No, you're right.
That,
They're
like,
not allowed to actually draw in the
they're
court.
not allowed to draw in the. So we're much more sophisticated in Ireland, I think, and I think that the courts value the art is like really good. It's a great sign of our country as a democracy, and we're it's a new country, and in that in in the constitutional sense, say,
Yeah,
and I think that it shows great sophistication.
it
I
does.
honestly do.
No, no, no,
If
no.
I may say so,
It-
much
I,
more sophisticated than the English system, even though
I, I
fellow.
think you might be slightly biased towards that opinion, but that's okay. being the only ever
at,
court artist
at,
in Ireland, that
at
might
pardonable
lean you a certain
bias,
way.
right? A forgivable bias.
Oh, absolutely. But speaking of bias,
Yeah,
if you're there listening to a court case, and as we said, the judge is the only one, and the jury, who are professional, who's a professional judge and who has to make the decisions, but yet you're still digesting all the evidence. When you're drawing a person, then the accused say, Um, do you have an opinion, an implicit opinion of guilt or innocence? And then do you try and put that into the painting, or do you try and do everything you can to keep that out of it?
Um, I think I think I think I learned very early on in this work that they're just humans. Humans are what I'm drawing, and I'll tell you what happened to me. Um, there was a lot. The very, very first case I was involved in, Di, was the Eamonn Lillis case, and I had I'd read what was in the papers about it, and it was like terrible, tragic and stuff. So I had no idea what I was walking into. So I went in and was drawing and so on. And I think one of the first days I went into the lift, and it's a big, tall lift to that court. And who joined me on me? Eamonn Lillis. And he's just like a normal guy, And I said, best of luck now on this. And he said, oh, thanks very much. Probably, like, it could have been a fellow over the wall, you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah,
it wasn't. He wasn't the monster that people would have imagined or that, or.
yeah,
Very early on, I discovered these people are just they're actually normal people in behind it all and in court.
absolutely.
Uh,
I think that scares most of us
that's the thing. Yeah,
because we like to think they're something completely separate and different to what we are ourselves. But but I'm afraid the truth is they're human beings too.
they're human beings too. And I remember looking out a window when I started first, and what these people can have done like is terrible. But I was thinking, what's out there is much more dangerous than what's in here.
Mm,
What's out there amongst the city all around. And it's much safer in here than it is out there. I had that thought. And
yeah,
like between in the last 15 years, like how many people have been taken in and what have they done and what they've been convicted of, like is not pleasant to think about. So
yeah.
yeah, so they are human. So to answer your question, uh, I I don't really, and I'm not really that interested in whether they're guilty or not, to be honest.
Okay, okay,
Um, I've had great experiences with a lot of them. They've
yeah,
held the door for me, for example, a lot of times. And then there was one lady who was involved in a cold. She murdered the husband. She had him beaten with a shovel, and I think the background there was abusive and whatever. But she held the door for me, and she was minutes later. She was put away for life, never seen again. You know, and
wow,
I always think of her. She was just that little bit kind to me.
yeah.
You know, and so maybe that was the last kind act she had in her liberty.
Maybe in her
Yeah.
liberty, but maybe not in
You
her
know,
life. Hopefully.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, is there any face that walked in that you just said, "Oh, that's going to be a great face to draw," or that's the perfect face? Now I can't wait to get my pen to paper for that one.
um, yeah, I've been thinking about this now. The best face. Well, I suppose the most distinguished face I've drawn is definitely the monk.
Okay, what
Yeah,
an interesting character he
and
is.
he hadn't been seen for years and years
Mm,
publicly. He'd been seen with a cap on his head at a funeral of his nephew or something like that. And that was all very tragic and so on. But he hadn't been seen publicly. But I felt him before. I felt him almost before I saw him. I didn't know who these three lads were, who was who, but I kind of thought that must be him, you know, because he had this very granite, strong. Somebody asked me some time ago, "Oh, you describe?" Well, he had he had spent his 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, kind of.
yeah,
And he had this biblical kind of aura about him, and he struck me as a really good subject. And I like to say that all the barristers are my muses, but he stood out
Okay.
amongst the accused and had an aura. No matter what anybody says, he had an aura about him. And I know what aura is because I was on the road to Ballybunion with my young daughter when she was about 2.5 and she was sick. And I stopped the car and I got out, and there was a whole lot of helicopters and police and around the place. You know, and we brought her out for to give her a bit of fresh air in September. And who stopped on the road? Only Bill Clinton.
Wow.
And he had a magic about him. And there was about 15 or 20 people on the side of the road, and he shook my hand and my daughter, and he was the last. And as he was coming down the length, you know, and all the people were there and they were shaking his hands, he seemed to make eye contact with everybody. And everybody felt that he was, I was talking to them afterwards, he was only there to meet them. And
Yeah.
I felt like that he was only there to meet me. He didn't have any interest in the rest of the gang lying on the road, only myself, you know. He had that aura, and so did your man have this aura as well.
So the monk had a similar aura to Bill Clinton.
He had an aura. Yeah,
Yeah.
he had an aura.
No, I totally get what you're saying. I think I've met
Yeah,
one or two people like that in my life, but and when you hear the monk being described as a veteran criminal, there's something about those two words being put together. It's like a veteran soldier. It's a well, he must be bloody good at it. So you
yeah.
know, if you're a veteran in that kind of trade, um, you must be kind of handy enough at it, or you must have something about you to be able to continue doing it. And
But
definitely the way
he had the visual side of it as well. He had the kind of lion's mane, you know,
okay, yeah,
and he was also very fit and strong looking, which I thought was interesting.
okay,
And the other lads were probably a similar age, but like were just normal Joe Soaps,
yeah,
you know, by comparison. And so was everybody else around the same age in the court, you know.
yeah.
So he stood out like that. So he was very interesting to draw. But there were others as well. But he would just be the kind of, I suppose, the great kahuna, you know, of the.
And you didn't just draw him in court, though, did you?
No, I met him.
Yeah,
I found myself in his house a couple of months afterwards because I had been, when I was drawing him in court, I was sick and I had to spend a few months in hospital, and I just had a hard time. And when I came out, I wanted to do what I suppose I was at Gerry Adams's trial. Do you remember they used to describe things as a spectacular? I wanted to do a spectacular. I wanted to do a kind of a Regency style artistic endeavour, you know, without having
okay,
anybody killed. And so I says, I did this. I visited him at, you know, I wanted to draw him, sit him down properly, and I did. And I brought him up with tart from Kerry, and I spent a few hours, and out of that I created an exhibition, and that was very successful.
yes, lovely.
And he
That was called
visited as well, which was very interesting. You know, I came out from Dublin, and so I showed him around, and that was it.
lovely. And where
Quite
was the
unusual.
exhibition
It was
released? Is that
on,
what it was called?
yeah, it was on in the stall,
Okay,
but it was definitely a spectacular. Like it was
yeah,
not what was expected, and it was absolutely thronged. The opening, I expected maybe 25 people maybe to be in the foyer. There was easily 200 people at it. Like it was from all walks of life. Yeah, all walks of life, and it was like, and Jim Sheridan, the director, opened it, and that was nice for him, you know. So
it's just strange how much of a draw Gerry Hutch is and the character that he is. Like people who certainly don't support criminality,
yeah,
but there's something very unique about Gerry Hutch that draws people in.
I think there is a fascination with these people who have, you know, are the, I suppose, I don't know what it is. It's something mysterious, and um, as you say, people who don't support criminality or that are still intrigued by it. So across all walks of life, and yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose
Yeah,
all the TV shows we watch about serial killers and the
yeah,
crime scene investigates, we are kind of somewhat
yeah.
enthralled by
People
all
are.
that.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe people have to have a witch in life, or somebody who represents the other underworld or the other world, or maybe I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe it's something got to do with that.
That's funny you bring up witches. When I was doing a bit of research for this conversation, the first sketch artists were in the Salem witch trials, apparently. So
That's right.
the
Yeah,
first court sketch artists, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
right. That's where it goes back to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Maybe we do need witches. We need bad guys. Yeah, so we can
This
think
is it.
ourselves good.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, yeah. But there's enough of them around.
That's for sure. That's for sure. We've never been lacking bad guys to
No,
to
no,
to
and they
put
they
up.
all like these people crop up.
Hmm.
And you see now the Satchel. He's the latest, and there'll be
Yeah.
another one now in a few months. And
Tell us about that Satchel case. That's it. That's going on, or actually, is that going on right now? Because we probably shouldn't talk about it if it is.
no, he's being sentenced. He'll be
Okay.
sentenced soon. Yeah, yeah. That's done and dusted, really. But yeah, so I didn't really. I've been busy in the high courts in the forecourts, but I was there at the opening of that particular trial, and I have the privileged position. I'm the only person who sits behind the accused if I need to. So the judge is very kind to me, honestly. So I sat behind him and uh, got a full view of the court, but it occurred to me while I was sitting behind him, kind of, he was, say, if you're looking at a clock, he was at 2 o'clock. Or if you're driving a car like you stole it, he was at 2 o'clock, and beyond him were all the media, and of course they were studying him like, like, writing down, taking notes of, oh, he'd looking around, da, da. And sure, I was kind of saying, geez, you know, there I am. Sure, normally you're looking at somebody and there's nothing behind them, but I was there studying from the other side, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I just found it very, very funny, but it was interesting drawing at the same time.
There was when Ghislaine Maxwell was on trial. At one stage, there was a few court sketch artists in there, and at one stage, she turned around with a pen and paper, and she started to sketch one of the sketch artists. And then another one of the sketch artists went to the side and started to sketch that scene of the sketch artist
Yes,
sketching Ghislaine, and then Ghislaine sketching the sketch artist, and yeah, it becomes
that's
a kind
lovely.
of
Yeah.
unending mirrors. But did anything like that ever happen to you? As in, did you ever feel that when you were sketching somebody, you were making them feel a certain way? You know.
Yeah, plenty of times. I've loads of stories like things like that happening. Like the very first was there was a brothel keeper um, of Asian origin, so I was drawing her, and she was, it was a circuit court hearing in Dublin actually, and she was curious what I was drawing, so she left the dock during a break and she sat down beside me and she was looking at my work, and I thought that was very interesting. And then there what you described now is very, very dramatic altogether, but when I was on the stand, I drew myself afterwards
Hmm.
um, on the stand with the senior counsel cross examining me. Um, uh, did I ever? Oh yeah, I remember a guy on trial for murder actually over a drug deal. He was on bail and he was going through my work outside the court. We were chatting, and again, minutes later, he was put away for life, or just convicted. Sorry. And so it's kind of interesting. It's funny you come face to face with people in situations like that, and they're very very like they're very very positive about the art as well. They love it, you know.
Yeah.
And if it gives them a bit of, isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
If it's nice for them. Although I remember going in, there was three guys sitting in the dock, um, and there was it was for a rape. Two of them were on trial for rape. Now there was a translator among them, and I didn't know who the translator was, and he kind of felt that I didn't know who the translator was. So I had three guys going like this, blocking their faces. The guy in the middle happened to be the translator, um, but he wasn't taking any chances, you know.
So,
I thought that was very funny, you know.
so you had
But
four
I knew
people
that
blocking
I
their
knew what was
faces.
going on, you know, and
Yeah.
I just continued trying. Yeah, so
What did you draw? Did you draw their hands across their
I
faces
did,
then?
yeah, I did. Yeah. But it's very funny though. I've learned, you know, I'm sure, you know, if somebody blocks their eyes, um, things in the face match up. You know, you're not going to have a
Okay.
long ears with round nose. You know, everything kind of matches. So you can imagine things well. And if you get a good look at them, sure you're grand. You'll make
And,
up the image, you know. So yeah,
and would you be able to get how long would you need to look at somebody to be able to draw their face?
it
Would you get
depends.
it at a glance?
It depends on the face. You know, some
Okay.
like your face is grand. You know, other people like we're very fair and don't. You see, I work with lines. You know, so if the lines aren't there, like a lot of people not some people are very pale or waxy, so you're not pale or waxy, or kind of have a pallor that's not defined, um, are difficult, you know. So,
Okay.
but anybody with proper Celtic lines like you and me are grand. They'll take a minute easily. There's no problem with them. But other people would take a lifetime. And you might get them right in the end, you know. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, such an Irish way to describe it too. Other grand, they're grand. Is there a place you like to sit in the court? Do you try and get there early to get a certain place? I know you like to be up in the witness stand, but they can't let you up there all the time. But so, is there a spot you sit?
Yeah. So in the Central Criminal Court, I'd often sit beside the journalists. But now, for the last since I suppose November, I the prime position for me, the carpet box in the court, but you wouldn't know about carpet. The carpet box is behind the accused.
Behind.
Behind the accused, yeah. So I get the accused at 2 o'clock, and I get the senior counsel, and on the other 10 to 2, let's say. On the 10, I'll get the judges. I'll get the view.
Okay.
You know, that's my recent one, and the judges are just so good like that. You know, they just love me.
Okay. And can anybody do this, or do you need a special press card, or
Yeah, I have
you
a
need a
press card.
special pass? Yeah, so
I
you
have a
do
press.
need a special pass to
I
do this.
probably use it as I use it as a flag of convenience. You know, so it allows me access to all trials.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
and I'm very lucky to have it. Believe me.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
You've been in some really some trials for me, I don't know if I'd be able to sit through them. And the one that comes to mind is the Aisling Murphy murder trial. Um, uh, that seems like a hard thing to sit through. What was that like for you to endure that?
Yeah, that was obviously everybody knows about that. It was a very sad trial, terrible story. But I remember, uh, like as I say, I don't have any stake or position, and I don't doesn't that doesn't matter to me. You know which way a trial goes is of no consequence. It's the image that's important to me. But I remember being in there when a guard showed a GA jersey belonged to the victim, and I was thinking, I mean, I have a daughter like who's around Ashton's age, and who's a very similar kind of life, I suppose, and that just when that jersey was shown up, I says like, I'm out of here now, I don't need to see this, or I don't need to be here, it was just too much, and just got up and left. But the guards can't do that, the lawyers can't do that, the jury can't do that, the judge can't do it. No, nobody can do that, But families, of course, if they want, but I mean, I'm working there, but I can leave when I want, like that, So I felt that I was lucky to be able to do that, but other people aren't able to do that,
And do you?
leave, So
Yeah, absolutely.
that was probably plus when Brendan Grehan was describing the shooting of Detective Gary Adrian Donoghue.
Yes.
That was very, very emotional, and I had a grandfather who was a guard, and his name is read out in the commemoration every year in Dublin Castle, and he died tragically. And I suppose that when a guard is shot or hurt, or especially shot and murdered, um, it affects me, and I pay particular interest to the trial. But when he was describing that, it was kind of very, it kind of was. I stayed for it, but it kind of gutted me, I can't imagine what it was like for the families in both cases,
Yeah, no, something like that I think would impact me as well. And I wonder, does your art give you a way to kind of expel the demons
Yeah.
that you might take in and be able to leave it on the paper and not take it home with you as such?
Yeah, well, I do it voluntarily, but I do it for my job as well to put bread on the
Yeah,
table. I'm 100% committed. Um, but whatever it is about art and physically expressing something is like, I suppose maybe in sport as well, and in any physical expression, there's therapeutic side to it,
yeah.
And but you're from Galway, and I'm from Kerry, and sure, when I'm working in Dublin during the week, I always look forward to coming down to Kerry, and but I love my work so much that when I'm in Kerry, I'm just dying to get back up again. When I get on the train, it's like jumping on a big elastic band, you know.
And okay, talking about Kerry and Dublin without going into the All Ireland, we'll talk about.
I have no interest until the semi-final, like I've always said.
You have had quite a few drug seizures, and the Sinaloa cartel, the very major Colombian, is it Mexican
Yeah,
cartel, has been involved in methamphetamines, I believe, down in Kerry. Were you in the court for them
I
drawing
was,
those sketches?
yeah, from the beginning, and I'm just very disappointed by the whole thing. That's my reaction to the whole thing. I'm disappointed especially for Tralee, because Tralee's great, and Kerry. Like, I'm just disappointed that something like that would happen,
Yeah.
and I often wonder how these things happen. I
Mm,
honestly don't know. It's beyond me. I don't understand humans at all, really. I like
yeah,
to try to, but I was coming in the car from Dingle this morning. I was saying, I just don't understand human beings at all. I
yeah,
I don't understand what motivates them to. But anyway, I followed that trial, and um, it's not fully, resolved yet because there's
okay,
more cases going on. You know.
okay,
But it's
yeah,
just anything criminal that happens in Kerry is just very disappointing for me because I think we have it all in lots of ways.
yeah. Kerry is beautiful, and I think the whole country when they heard that the Sinaloa cartel was involved in drugs in Ireland we were like, oh, what part of Dublin? And then we heard Kerry, and it was like, no way.
Yeah, I know. It's just very disappointing because we have like like many country places now, like we can kind of complain about government neglect, but we're very and naturally endowed with the most beautiful places in Ireland, and like Galway is much the same, almost the same. But like we're very lucky, and
Yeah,
people they're kind of, I don't know, have you sensed this, but I could be wrong, but there's a kind of frontier mentality down in Kerry. Like there's a lot of uh, like somebody mentioned to me this morning, was chatting, like we used to have pirate radio stations down in Kerry in the 80s that were magnificent. No, there aren't pirate radio. That is that, but Tralee and Kerry has that kind of, there are people who take initiative. And
yeah,
I really admire that, and I draw from that as well.
yeah,
There are people like who come up with new ideas and go for it. And it's the same kind of stuff that's played out in the football field in Galway and Kerry, and
yeah,
up along the west coast,
yeah.
especially football.
I did feel that down in Kerry. I was down there a couple of years ago for a while, and I did feel that kind of mentality down there. They get after it, and they don't care too much about what people think. Kind of mentality.
Yeah, yeah,
And I find that out in Connemara as well.
yeah, isn't
The,
that?
the, there's a very kindliness that comes with it as well. Like it's a yeah, no,
And there's a kind
they're
of forgiveness as well.
yes,
There is a
yes,
forgiveness,
because
and
everybody's trying, so it's okay if some people fail. Like it's bound to
yeah,
happen.
exactly, yeah, and it's in the language as well.
Ah, yes,
And the kind of, I suppose, the way people speak is far more fluid and less precise than the East Coast. But then a lot of the East Coast people are drawn to the likes of Kerry and Galway. I'm just back from Dingle now this morning, which is full of Dublin people,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
And I last night I was walking out Fintry, or out, sorry, the pier in Dingle, and I heard a group of Dublin people in front of me saying, "And up the mountain there, is that electricity going up there?" And I was saying, I was,
Ah,
I,
yeah.
yeah, I was kind of,
There's normally a few lies around the place to tell people like that who are asking silly questions, isn't it?
yeah.
It's just
And that's only the Dubs now, not to mention the Americans.
absolutely.
And on top of that, then I was, I not so long ago I was up in Dublin walking down Sydney Avenue or Parade Avenue, going down into Sandymount Strand, and the person I was with saying, "God, isn't it lovely here?" And I said, I summoned all the sympathy I had. You could see on one side, you could see Poolbeg, the two towering infernos, and right down to, I suppose, Brayhead or whatever. And I said, it is beautiful. It is beautiful. Thinking back in Kerry, geez, sure, there's no comparison in the world. You know, we'll give him a bit of scraps of praise. I'm
What
very arrogant. I suppose we have arrogance down the West Coast, I'll do it.
actually you need that. You need that. It's just too cold to be anything else.
Yeah, yeah.
do
This is it.
you ever travel, or do you ever think about traveling to other countries when you hear of big court cases on? Do you ever think of going over there to be a court artist?
It occurred to me actually last week because I was in Malta. There's a big
Okay.
trial on there of a journalist who was killed, murdered by a car bomb, and she was an investigative journalist. Her name was Daphne
Okay.
something. I can't remember her name. But a friend of mine who works in Kerry, from Malta, said you should go and do the dry. I didn't. I was too tired. It was only a
Yeah.
holiday, really. But it has occurred to me. Yeah, I've friends in America, like the Supreme Court artist who's just retired, said you should come over and draw it. I don't know how that works over there. Plus, Jane Rosenberg, you mentioned her actually through the Ghislaine, whatever her name is, the lady. I
Yeah.
think she was one of the artists involved. And I'm connected with all these people. And Margaret Hemming Small then in Boston. So there's a few of us that kind of we have a little.
All
There's a
right.
little group of us, yeah. We chat.
So you don't go and do guest sets in other
Yeah.
people's in other people's courts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd love to, but I might sometime actually, yeah. It'd be great fun. Yeah. But
Uh,
I just so love what I'm doing here. Like, it's just great.
yeah.
That's
You
it.
you mentioned that the courts, you often see them as like a movie set or a set of a TV show. And I think one of the most famous courtroom dramas has to be A Few Good Men
A few good
with
men.
with Jack Nicholson and Tom
Oh
Cruise.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You can't handle the truth. No that.
and the "you can't handle the truth" moment. I mean, everybody knows that line, everybody knows that scene, and that was the moment that Jack Nicholson broke, and that broke up in the whole case. And then did you order the code red? You're goddamn right, I ordered the code red. Did you ever see a moment like that in court where one witness or one line of questioning or even one answer blew the whole thing wide open?
I did.
Oh, please tell.
The Conor McGregor case
Okay.
when he lost it on the stand.
Oh, please tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was watching him, and he lost it, and I think he was needled by the senior counsel defending the complainant, and apparently, while assaulting her, he put her in a headlock. And Mr. Gordon, who was senior counsel, said, "Isn't that what you were doing? You were telling her this was what it felt like to be in the cage when you're basically when you're beaten by Khalil." And this didn't go down well with Mr. McGregor, and he lost it. And I remember what he said, but I wouldn't repeat what he said. But he lost it, and I think that was that detonation. Let's say I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine in the eyes of the jury didn't go down too well. If
I
you lose it
see.
on the stand,
Yeah, the veil dropped.
yeah, um, the veil dropped. Yeah, yeah.
There was
I like, but these people are very skilled. The
hmm,
senior counsel are very skilled to probe and to to needle people. They're well able to, they're almost like your mother pressing the right, the wrong button. She's well able to, always well able to do that. The mother, So
yeah, you don't know you're in the shit until you're literally up to your waist in it, and then all of a sudden it's like, how did I get here? Yeah.
this is it.
uh, just a sidebar question, I guess. There was pictures of Nikita Hand shown in the court, and I've only ever seen descriptions of them, and I think it was a medic who described them as one of the worst she's ever seen. Do you remember those pictures? Were they bad?
Um, no, I didn't see the pictures. I didn't, and often I don't even. Often when if there's a monitor going, like for example, Gerry Adams' last case, there was which he won for defamation against BBC in the last few days.
And were
Uh,
you in the court for that? That
I
was
was, yeah, yeah.
that was in Belfast, was it?
No, it was on Dublin,
Oh, okay. Sorry, I
Dublin
thought
High
that was
Court.
in
Yeah,
Belfast. Oh,
yeah.
very good.
So he came down off the stand, and he had nowhere to sit. So I said, "Sit down there." So I got up, and he sat down in my chair and looked at some monitor, a TV monitor, where there was some film being shown. I suppose spotlight program or whatever it was. But everybody's looking that way, and I was looking this way because I don't know. I'm interested in what's happening. I have no interest in what's happening on the screen.
I
But
get you.
it's these people, and there was Gerry Adams' head. Die was literally like there.
Yeah.
that close, and a little bit close for comfort. Let's put it like that. And so I looked around in a meeting and I says, "What am I here for?" So I says, I was drawing him. So I got my thing. I was drawing him. His head was right there, and there I was drawing him. And I have that picture. But that was a very special one to me.
That sounds
So
special. So he was only a foot away from you,
he
basically.
was right there. I'd say he was the closest muse I ever had. And then just to everybody else in afterwards.
I
But I mean,
imagine.
everybody's head is directed to what's up there. I've no interest in those ever. No
Yeah.
interest. In fact, I've no interest in hearing. And even this morning there was something on the radio about some case. I turn off, no interest in it. It's only
So
all
you
secondhand. That's all secondhand reportage. This is
okay?
this is firsthand. I'm involved in firsthand primary source
Yeah.
historical documentation. That's the way I look at
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Anything else in radios or TV or dramas, they're all secondhand.
yeah. No, and it's interesting the way you paint the picture that you're in the court and everybody is entranced at whatever evidence or whatever has been shown at the top of the court. But you're there to look at the people who are entranced. You are there to look at the scene, not the actual evidence, and not the.
That's
Mm,
that's true. Yeah,
yeah.
but I do often come out though in a trance myself. When I come
Okay.
out of the court, it takes me a while to get back to because I'm so absorbed with the visual part of it. So
Yeah.
like when I go into a gallery, like I was at a pre Raphael, was it some exhibition there very recently in London, and I came out like in a daze because visually just too much for me, you know. And it takes a while to get back into. So I do come out some because it's like coming off a field after a match. Like you left everything on the field. That's kind of a new expression, I think, you know. And it takes time to gather yourself, you know. So
If you, if
I know that I'm aware of the impact it has on me, you know, like visually or I suppose all the information. Then I come out.
yeah.
It takes me a while to, but that's fine. I'm well able to deal with that, I think. You know.
And do you have to go back down to Kerrydon to recenter yourself after?
I think my battery is very low at
Okay.
the moment. Is that 3? I just plug it in. Is that right?
That's of course, yeah, that's fine.
How can I just? I'll just get the thing. It's really
So
late.
is there any trial that you said to yourself, I will never forget this. I will never forget what happened here. That this will stick with me for the rest of my life.
Uh, Funny thing is now that I suppose the McGregor trial. Well, obviously the one before that, the Diurmd Rossa Phelan trial, where I was on the stand. That'll always that will always I'll always remember that. That went on for an extended period, and in the meantime, the Conor McGregor trial happened, and I'll never forget that as well. And I think the Gerry Adams trial, I won't ever forget that ever because he, you know, I think that he'd probably be. It's arguable he's probably the most significant political figure in Ireland in the last 50 years. You know,
Yeah.
whether people would have views, you know, but that's probably a fact. And then the most recent one that I'm involved in, where I'm working at the moment, is the Magner trial over land in Kilkenny or Tipperary, wherever. That will stand my mind because uh, I had conflicting information that he would have. I was away on holidays in Malta for a week or so, and missed the opening of the trial, and he was giving evidence. And it isn't every day you'd see a billionaire giving evidence in the Irish courts, So I kind of felt I probably missed this now, but I got information from multiple sources, conflicting information from multiple sources, saying that he would appear and he wouldn't appear. And sure, I got up at 4:10 on Friday morning in Kerry and got the train up, and sure enough, he appeared, and I was delighted. And then, immediately after, I noticed it feels like to come down off the stand, you're in a daze, and you're vulnerable. So I says, "Mr. Mac, any chance you could sign there?" And he signed it. So he quadrupled the value of it, at least. And yeah, so the senior counsel signed it. I don't often. Gerry Adams signed my work as well, which is great. And all these things are part of the historical record. I
Yeah.
actually have outside of a school report signed by Padraig Pearse, original. So I don't collect these things, but it's
It seems you do. I'm sorry, but it
no,
seems.
I don't. But it might be,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good to have their signature as well.
Oh, it's excellent. It's
It
lovely.
always kind of all these things. Like I'm a businessman, and anything that adds value to my work is of interest to me.
Hmm. Did Gerry Adams have that aura that we were talking about earlier, like the monk?
Um, he well, having background information on him, like
Mm.
everybody, our age, especially maybe not younger people, but he, I suppose, you project an aura on him as well. If
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
if that even makes sense.
No,
But
absolutely.
he was very, very ordinary and very kind to me, and in the sense that I can talk to anybody. There's nobody telling me. There's nobody going to fire me for talking to anybody. I've spoken to McGregor, and I've spoken to the gentleman yesterday in the witness stand. I've spoken to. There's a huge aviation trial involving multi-billions of euro of aircraft trapped in Moscow or in Russia, and I was talking to these like major, these acclaimed international experts. It was never in the media because there was other things going on in the media. There's only a certain amount of pages in the newspaper, but these are huge international. These are huge stories and huge financial stories and legal stories, all mixed up with insurance and stuff. And there are experts on international Russian relations that you might see sometimes on the likes of CNN. And I was chatting to these people, but nobody else could speak to them because they're all, lawyers. There was no public. The only non-lawyer was me. And I could chat to these. I was having a quick chat, and they were talking to me, and they ended up buying my work, emailing me, and like, imagine how privileged that is. I could speak to say a professor from the UC from University College London on what he thinks of Putin, and these people have met these people.
Yeah,
And the lawyers couldn't because they can't, talk to witnesses.
yeah, yeah. They
But I
have
could.
skin in the game.
Yeah, they have skin in the game, kind of,
What would stick in
doesn't
your
it?
head? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that would stick in my head.
yeah.
And then like it's like this year for some reason these extraordinary trials have happened
Mm.
in the high courts, in the high courts that are, and about Gerry Adams. Then had he got that aura, he seems to me to be impenetrable.
Okay,
It's hard to, but that's probably a weapon he has,
absolutely.
or
That's
a coat of mail, and that
yeah.
stands to him,
It's been
So
conditioned that way, I guess.
yeah,
Do you
but
um
yeah.
do you ever feel like you're recording a moment in history, particularly at them trials where there's no other journalists there or the press aren't covering it? Do you think, oh my God, I'm the one recording this moment in history here?
I do die, uh, but I was at the opening of my exhibition, thankfully, and the Judge Tara Burns, who presided at the Regency trial, opened it, and she said that Mike's work is the only visual archive we have of court hearings, and she was effusive in her praise, but which is it's good for me, it made me feel good, and it was very kind of her and so on. But I often think, when I'm drawing them, for example, they're actually don't go into any state record, they're for me they're commercial creations. They're for sale. So barristers will come along and buy them eventually if they don't buy them on the day, So, they're not curated afterwards and put away and into some kind of repository,
Yeah.
I presume. And even this year I've been looking, I've done over 400 drawings since October, and a lot of them, some of them are not finished and so on. Kind of I leave them, but they're a little bit all over the place. Let's put it like that. But they need to be kind of archived.
Yeah.
If the judge only knew, God. But having said that, though, if they are, there's a stenographer that's employed by the courts, so all the words are recorded, but the images aren't. But then again, if they ever advertise and said, "Look, we want to employ," I wouldn't work for the state at all. I wouldn't be paid enough.
That wouldn't work for you. No, that wouldn't work for you. You'd feel like you'd taken a
That wouldn't
side
work.
then.
But there is, it would be very innovative if the courts ever did decide to hire a court art. I think it'd be be no bad idea.
No, I think it could be a good
You know,
idea. I think it could be
yeah.
a good idea as well.
Not
But
being biased or anything, Di,
no,
as
not
ever.
being biased. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
But,
So.
okay, from your perspective, which Irish court cases, since you began your work in 2010, which Irish court cases have had the most profound impact on public consciousness?
Oh, that's a very interesting one. On public consciousness, I think there are two competing ones. The Regency one obviously was very, very big, but I think that the McGregor trial was slightly polarizing, but it definitely did impact on public consciousness. And, you had a very, very successful person and in the respondent in McGregor, and you had a young lady who was obviously in a very vulnerable position. I think that was a clash of two different, let's say, types. And then also, I think that the probably underestimated is the first trial we mentioned there, the Rossa Phelan and uh, the people from Tala.
Yeah, Conlon's.
Yeah, the Conlon family. Yeah, the Conlon people, and I think that is. I think it could be more profound than people would think.
I think so too.
You had a clash of cultures. You had a clash of classes. I think I think you mentioned that. And you also had rural versus urban kind of thing, and you had a killing, an alleged murder, which which wasn't deemed murder at all, and by the jury, and he's as innocent as the day before. He got involved in this. So in the eyes of the law, and I would worry about the impact that has on people's confidence in the justice system. I think, in the end, it's the people inside in the court. It's all the lawyers and the judges and so on, juries, that they make huge, absolutely huge decisions. And because courts are administered in public, the public has has, their eyes and ears on these things as well. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Great.
I
Thanks.
think
I think that's a good answer, and I think I definitely put the Rossa Phelan case in there for those same reasons. I think it says a lot about where Ireland is now when basically a poor man goes hunting on a rich man's land and ends up with a bullet in the back of his head. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
yeah.
um, okay, Mike, if we had a magic wand,
Yeah.
and if you could have any one person in history or alive today to sit for you, who would it be?
My God, nobody's ever asked me that before. Um, that's very, very interesting. I'd say can I dodge that question
You can, of
and
course. You
say
can.
that in everybody's face there's a perfection and there's
Okay.
beauty, and everybody's face is a kind of a document describing the past. It even brings their provenance, going way back in history. It's like it's a record, as they are. Their face is a record of where they came from, who they're from. Their grand. You could see some people see their uncles and mothers and so on. They're probably going way back. That particular visage they have is probably ancient. And this, what you're seeing, is a moment in time. But there's also kind of, you can see in people's faces like hope and future, and you can see their grandchildren that they may have so at some stage. So it's a real crossroads of time, past, time present, time future. So anybody's face, I
That
just
that that
love it
that's
so much.
that's the most beautiful avoidance of a question I've
Yeah.
ever had, Mike. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for not being straightforward about that one and just saying Jesus or Caesar or somebody. That was a fantastic answer.
No, that you
Um,
ask.
um, okay, would you have any advice for an aspiring court artist?
Yeah. An aspiring court artist, practice and practice and also struggle, because no good art can come out of the easy life and the happy life and the privileged life and the kind of life, the kept life. So there has to be struggle. That's why I think something like AI will never be have real art, because the artist brings expresses themselves and their struggles and their coping through their art. So the aspiring artists, I don't wish them any bad
Yeah,
times, but you can't create art without having had struggle, and I've had struggle, health wise, and I've been nearly killed a few times, and these all are nearly died a few times, and these inform my art. And every day I go in, it's like it's hard to believe, but it's like a rebirth every day. I live every day like a life, and people think of life as an infinite, or as a big long string, a big long set of intervals going in a straight line. But I like to think of it as vertical, so each day is like a lifetime to me. And that's the way since, like, I've had chemo in my time. That's only one part, one episode. And I've seen people die, and like everybody else probably. And I've seen times past, and I was over in a grave there this morning, and I saw young people who died, and I'm really conscious of how lucky I am to be alive, actually doing what I love doing, and being restless in my sleep to go in and show up and do what I absolutely love doing, and so without having experienced what I've experienced, like, there's no way I'd have the motivation and like just desire to create something artistically, And I just have I'm so hungry, for doing this, and so I having had the struggle, say, and financially, I had nothing. I remember being on the dole downtown in Tralee here, and you know what? I had nothing. And I remember going into the Dominican church across the road for heat, while the queue would probably diminish a small bit across the road. Then I'd go in and get my dole, and I was putting my hands on the brown heaters, the oil-filled heaters in the church. And then I'd look out the door and see that the people had, gone in a bit more. So I'd go in and join the queue. And, in one way that was struggling. And I remember cycling home my bike and smelling the dinners being cooked, and I didn't have the food. And I so value being, now I can practically eat what I want, and I'm not hungry, and I'm my art it sates me, is that the word? It gives me enough. And that makes me feel so good and so alive and so happy. But on the other hand, all that struggle, you have to have inspiration. And on the other hand, I had 2 episodes in my life which were absolutely outstanding. And one was my granduncle was prefect of the Vatican Library for years, and
Wow.
he allowed me into the Sistine Chapel on my own when I was about 20, and there was nobody in there. But way up high in a scaffold, there was a fella restoring. And so I walked around, and then I lay down, and I looked up at the Sistine Chapel, all the Michelangelo's works, and I said, "How privileged am I?" It was like looking into the eternal, or the abyss, or the divine. That was. I take that with me every day. And on top of that, in I happened to be in Abu Dhabi in 2019, around this time of the year, May 5th or May 3rd, thereabouts, earlier. And there on the wall in front of me was La Belle Ferronnier, which is one of about 20 portraits, 20 artworks, paintings that Leonardo did. There it was, on my own, 500 years to the day that he died. And I was in front of this portrait that he did of her, La Belle Ferronnier. And it was like me and him together. And again, it was like that feeling from 25 years earlier of looking into something divine. It was like looking at Venus or something, all alone. One of the probably the greatest artists that ever lived, who was completely curious about everything and was able to capture this image of a beautiful woman, just less than life size. I actually have it on the wall here. One second. Not the original. I have it on the wall. This isn't the original, by the way.
If you had the original,
Yeah.
no, that'd probably be a different conversation. Eh?
The
Oh,
original is
fantastic.
probably up in the attic somewhere. But anyway, that's it. And I was alone with that for about an hour and a half
Okay.
in Abu Dhabi. And I was like,
Yeah.
that made me feel so special. And I have a book of Leonardo. Somebody gave me a present of a book with all his artwork and drawings and so on. And it's up there in the mantelpiece, and I won't open it until the day is right. It's been there for about 5 years. I won't open the book because I know I'll be overwhelmed by it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like I just can't. I can't open it because it's just so special. Can
Will
you
you
believe
ever
that?
open it?
When the day is right, keep telling people when the day
When
is right, I'll
that's
open
right.
it. Just can't do it.
Okay.
Too precious.
Um,
If the house is on fire, I'd run out, but I'd take that with me. And I probably
it's
never.
strange that
I
it's the most precious thing in your house
and I,
according to the fire, but
yeah,
it's what you won't look at.
yeah. I think it's extraordinary. But I just
Yeah.
won't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Is there any project you want to promote here or tell the listeners where they can find your stuff, or if they want to
Oh, yeah.
maybe buy your stuff?
Yeah. Thank you, Di. Um, I have my I don't have a website. Can you believe it? I used to have. I just forgot it.
Okay.
And so I'm on Twitter, Instagram especially,
Okay.
and I produce videos of my work, and I enjoy that. And I put
Very
music in
good.
the background, and I just love doing that. It's great, kind of rather than showing the static work. This is kind of a visual kind of journey through it and teasing, and I just love it. I love that part of it.
And is that
That's
Mike O'Donnell art on Instagram?
well, it's I suppose hashtag Mike O'Donnell art, yeah.
Hashtag Mike
Or
O'Donnell.
else there's Mike O'Donnell. It's kind of written MIKODONNELL, just MIKO, whatever
Okay.
that is, Miko or something, yeah. So yeah, I
Okay.
wish I could tell you more. There's a lot more I could tell you.
Okay. Well, we can wait for another story. I mean, I was about to ask you my final question there that I
Go
ask
on.
everybody, but if you have
Yeah.
another story to tell us, Mike, I'd be more than happy to hear it.
No, it actually, I really believe that the art is, it's a, I'm like what would I say, the conduit, it flows through me, and it comes from, uh, just speaking for myself, it comes from generations past, and it
Mm.
comes out through me, and I have to mind myself to allow this to come out. And I'm
Yeah.
also influenced. That's my well, and it's also the people kind of that have influenced me around in my life, not just in previous lives,
Yeah.
but in the people that are around me here in Kerry, and also the environment I'm from as well. Like I was talking to somebody recently. I didn't mention the place, no, by the way. I won't mention it here. I said, "Can you imagine growing up in?" But I mean, being from Kerry, like I'm very. It kind of, it's just so lovely for me, and to be able to go up to Dublin, and then I meet people up in Dublin who are like experts. They're complete experts, and they work so hard. I kind of draw a lot of energy from them. And I've seen and I see every day people who are kind of slaves to their work, and I feel I'm so lucky that I give myself to my work. It's um, and the artist, the art as an artist, I submit to the artistic impulse. I don't try and control it. I kind of go with it. And the artist, the idea is the artist creates stuff, but in fact, the art actually pulls me in. So I let it. It takes me to different worlds, and that's fantastic for me. As a human being, I think.
Yeah.
I don't try and keep control. I just kind of let it take me.
Yeah. That's I some there's great thinkers, and I often like I'd have a bit of a background in philosophy and that, and I think of where do ideas come from, and you find a lot of people like Nietzsche. He'd go out and walk, and he never really claimed the idea as his own. It's like, well, he did, but it's more like the ideas just appeared in them.
Yeah.
It all came to fruition at some stage. And is there a letting go in a way to creativity? A letting go of trying, almost a letting go of.
Yeah. I I do you remember when I was chatting to you there about looking at the Leonardo pieces and looking at
Mm,
something divine and the Michelangelo work, so whether there is, uh, let's put it like this, as an artist and being completely absorbed in it, I'm touching something, that is already probably there, you know. Maybe like the ideas in the cave, Plato, is it?
yeah,
The
the
ideas, they're
allegory. Yeah,
there. Like the perfect circle is there, probably in people's minds, but it's probably there, and you're kind of trying to reach that, but it is there, and you know when you've got as far as you can get, kind of, and then you feel, oh, maybe I should have gone a bit further, But I think that the existence of, I think ideas probably do exist, independent of, like maths, for example, mathematical, it's like infinite series, like it's hard to imagine, but it probably is there. I love that kind of side of things, And when you talk about perfection, the perfect face. I don't even know if one exists, but there's perfection in the normal as well. People mightn't see that, There's beauty in even the most, you know, um, troubled face. I can't. I've often thought it's like I can't see an ugly person. I just can't. The face is so. It's, it's so spectacular. It's so spectacular, but yet it can appear so normal. But it's spectacularly interesting to draw and to study. Because I'm the only person who can probably in the country that can look at somebody's face without they feeling harassed, especially in
Yeah.
courts. Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
Look at not only their face, their whole body, their whole demeanor, their whole posture, and there's nothing they can do about it. But I don't. I mean, I don't. It's not harassment. I'm just looking at
Yeah.
them, and I'm measuring and shaping, recreating them. You know, and I'm conscious of the kind of alchemy of it. From just ink, you can create something of meaning. But I like it's really important for me, like not to. It isn't about me. It's about the voice or the art that's in me. It's not. I'm just there to. I'm like an instrument, but I mind the instrument.
Yeah.
I take care of it.
I was listening to I think there's two interviews now I want to mention here. One is with Walton Goggins. He's an actor, and he talked about when he was in acting school. He heard that Anthony Hopkins and Robert Duvall and others, what they did was they read the script 250 times and then they gave themselves over to an imaginary set of circumstances. End of story. So 250 times you read the script, then you give yourself over to an imaginary set of circumstances. And you go in, you do the best you can, and that's it, and you go home and happy days. And then I heard Ethan Hawke, and he was talking about work he did with Robin Williams. And he said they'd do a scene. He said, and Robin Williams would be fantastic. And everybody would literally be feeding off Robin Williams in this scene. And the scene would go great. And it'd be very energetic, it'd be very powerful. And then they'd all be back in the canteen afterwards, and they'd be sitting around and they'd be talking and they'd be like, wow, that was amazing, and feeling energized off it. But they'd look over and Robin Williams would be in the corner with a sad face, absolutely depleted because he had given everything into
Everything.
that moment. And
God,
Ethan Hawke's point was greatness like that doesn't come for free. There's a cost for some people
there's a cost.
who
Yeah.
do it to that extent. And I guess my question to you is, are you filled up by your art, or is there sometimes a cost to it?
Um, I sacrifice an awful lot. You know, I probably sacrifice attention to people, who care about me. Um, and I know when I leave here every Monday or Tuesday morning, like the next Tuesday morning that I leave, things that I love and places that I love and people that I love as well. And I get a lot of attention from people up there, and I don't know. I like the art having the attention, not me, really. The story isn't about me; it's about the art, and that's an ancient impulse, and I'm very conscious of that. Um, but I mean, I would sacrifice anything for doing this, not not a person's life or anything like that. But I'm there's no. I would go hungry, you know, if I had to achieve the work that I do, like I was. And there are days, like in my in my work, there are days when there's nothing, and then there's a feast, huge amount of like it's just like endless, and then suddenly there's nothing. And I'm conscious of that. The good days prepare me for the bad days. The bad days give me the hunger for the good days.
Okay.
And that's the way I look at it. So
Yeah.
if there's a dearth, um, I think I'm balanced though. If there was a happyometer, it it's driven a lot by the art. I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
Like how many people, how many artists can live a good life,
Yes.
and supported by their, because they all struggle. Most of them struggle,
Mm.
and I've struggled as well. And I will struggle again in the future at some
Mm.
stage. That's fine. But I won't stop until I can't move. You know.
You're lucky in more ways than
Huh?
you're lucky in many ways. You're lucky that you do what you love, and that you get so much from it. But listening to you speak, you're lucky that you recognize how lucky that you are.
I
That
hope so. Yeah.
I
Well, they
think
say the unexamined life isn't worth living. Isn't that what they say?
that's what Socrates.
Huh?
That's what Socrates said. Yeah,
Isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not worth it. And life is very precious.
That's
And
true.
I really, really believe in that idea. Of living each day is a lifetime.
Yeah, it's a good way.
It's a
That's a good
lifetime.
way to look at it.
Yeah, because I think it changes your perception. Because I remember listening to music from some. I'm not religious at all, but there was spiritual music from uh, Georgia on my earphones, like you're wearing, when I was in hospital. I had like loads of tubes stuck out of me, and I was thinking, this is the type of music I wanted when I was just leaving, and flipping out, you know. You wouldn't get that. That isn't injected into you or given by a tablet or anything. It's like it was an urge that I had to listen to this that kind of soothed me. And so the artistic world like really offers kind of consolation to people, you know, and I really believe in its value, I really do. And I think if you value yourself, people won't undervalue you. And I remember being in a car actually driving. It's a funny story. Driving in Killarney with Hugh O'Flaherty, who's the man really behind my work. And I said, he said, park there. I said, Hugh, you can't park here. It's a double hill line. You're not parked there, he says. So I parked. And he said to me, he said, if you act like a king, you'll be treated like a king. And I says, there's a lot in it.
Yeah,
The corollary is true as well.
yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. That's
So
true.
if you value yourself, people will value you.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. I think that's
I do
that's very
value it, but
important.
I value it only because there was times when I didn't, and
Yeah,
that's a huge cost as an artist.
yeah.
And
I'd
if you
say
don't
that.
value yourself, I see artists all the time like who will produce, must put everything into it and offer it for free or offer it for nothing. Breaks my heart.
Yeah, I
Because my
also.
father used to do that as well. He didn't value himself as an artist. And I remember two paintings up there that he did of two children, and the mother came along and said, "They're not like them at all." And we were all looking for, he might have got maybe at the time maybe 25 quid or something back in the 70s or 80s or whatever it was for. And we were all excited because she was coming on a Saturday. Jesus. So
She that did that upset him.
no, but it was. I suppose I felt like we were excited about getting maybe something out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
he didn't say anything afterwards. But I always remember that.
yeah.
Just said that's fine. That's fine. She went off. She was probably entitled to it, but
She was entitled
there
to it,
was
of course.
nothing. He got nothing from all his works. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
that
that's.
like he just didn't. He. But there's no way I'd be treated like that. Like I wouldn't have that. it isn't, because the art isn't just mine. It's belonged to the people who supported me and my family. And I was telling my brother there, like, things were going well, and he said, "Isn't that great?" I says, "Well, I go up to Dublin, I bring down my money," I says, "and I spend it locally here." So he says, "You're contributing to local to Tralee." So I said, "I am." And so I like to go down, down for a bite to eat, and buy locally, because that money I know is coming directly from Dublin, and I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, I just loved it.
Yeah,
I love that.
I get you. No, you're bringing it home.
I'm
Yeah,
bringing home the bacon
bringing home the
to my own
bacon.
community.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
But I tell them that in Dublin. I said, "Well, I'm bringing home my money now down to Kerry," and I love that. I just love it. I went out for a pint on a Friday night, and I never drink. Like, I went out for a pint on Friday night, and somebody had paid me, and I got great satisfaction. So life has been good to me, but it's been tough. But it's been very good to me.
Well, now hopefully it
Got it,
continues to be good to you, Mike. Hopefully
You're
it continues.
It's only getting. I'm only starting.
every day,
Huh?
every day, 0 day, huh?
Every day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Mike. Well, I'm going to ask you that final question now, and then we leave it there. Is that all right?
Yeah.
The final question is, and you can be, well, it's only going to be a 1-sentence answer, I think. If we were writing a new story as to what it is to be human, and you could add 1 sentence to that story, what would it be?
I'll tell you what, for me, and it's to, and I've done all the wrong things, and my father used to say to me, you're take a fool's advice and stuff like that. And I saw written on a book. I have loads of books outside, and then an old book there is, "To thine own self be true." That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
To thine own self be true.
Yeah. That's a good one, Mike. That's a good
one. So, to be authentic is just number one. Never plow your own path always, and learn from what you regret. And get on with it. Drive on. Is that enough?
Drive on. That's enough. It's a decent sentence, but I think there's plenty in it.
Somebody told me in Dingle yesterday. Yeah, I sat into the car, and she told me to drive it like I stole it.
You get great one-liners going down around Kerry, and you get the best ones.
Definitely.
But Mike, thanks a lot for coming on and talking to us.
Thanks,
and
Barry.
Listeners, if you want to find Mike's stuff, you can find him, as he said, on Instagram and Facebook. And I'd ask you to go and look at his stuff and support him as much as you can.
I didn't have the time to look at it, but I started looking at a podcast you did with a professor about Trump.
Oh yeah, that was Professor John Pauley from America. Yeah,
America. Yeah. I must have a look at them. But I was telling my brother, he's very, very kind of probing, and I like that. I wish you the best of success. Is there anything you want from me, like in terms of, could I get somebody for you? Are you interested in that?
Well, we can talk about that afterwards, Mike. I'll just say goodbye to the listeners, and hopefully, Mike is going to hook me up with some more guests to bring you all.
Stop.
Mr. Gerry Hutch, I would love to have you on the podcast if you'd like to talk about the philosophy of your own career. But okay, listeners, thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Remember, talking is thinking. 3, 4.